How far would you go to clear your name? Some say he was a respectable and nice man. However, one day in February 2013, that changed when he reported a fellow officer for using brute force. He had crossed what is known as the blue line among police officers. How far would he go to clear his name? Join us as we examine the shootings and manhunt of Christopher Dorner on this episode of True Crime and Authors.
Welcome to True Crime and Authors Podcast, where we bring two passions together. The show that gives new meaning to the old adage, truth is stranger than fiction. Here's your host, David McClam.
What's going on, everybody, and welcome to another episode of True Crime and Authors. Of course, I am your man, David McClam. Hey, if you guys haven't already, make sure that you join us on all of our social media outlets. You can find one link to a link tree in the show notes that'll get you to every place you need to be. All right, so as you guys have probably already heard me say, I do have another podcast called A Day with Crime. That show is just on hiatus right now, but it is still very active. I do that with my daughter, Geneva. Some people have requested that some of the cases that I have done there, that I also bring here, because it has been a while since I've done some of those. Being that I have a different audience over here, you guys may never go and listen to A Day with Crime. These cases are important. I decided I would do that. So every once in a while, I will do a case that I've done over at Day with Crime. Maybe some information has changed. Maybe my feelings on that case has changed. And you guys have the benefit of hearing the case and deciding what you think about it for yourself. So today, I am going to do such a case. Today's case is about the shootings and manhunt of Christopher Dorner. I covered this case back in December 13, 2019, over on A Day with Crime. We are now almost 3 years since that time, and the same feelings I had then on this case, I still have now. Before we begin, just a disclaimer, I do not agree with anything that you're about to hear that Christopher Dorner did. I would never agree with things that took place. However, I do understand them. I do understand the corruption. And if there's anybody here that is law enforcement, I don't believe all police are bad, but this is going to talk about the blue line quite a bit and LAPD. So I just wanted to point that out. Okay, so let's start with Christopher Dorner. He was born Christopher Jordan Dorner on June 4th, 1979 in New York, and he grew up in Southern California. He attended Cypress High School in Cypress, California, where he graduated in 1997. Christopher Dorner graduated from Southern Utah University in 2001 with a major in political science and a minor in psychology. While there, he was a football running back from 1999 to 2000. Dorner later stated that he was the only African-American student in his school from first grade to seventh grade, and that he had altercations due to racism. When he was a teenager, he decided to become a police officer and joined a youth program offered by the police department in La Palma, where he lived at the time of the incidents. Neighbors described Christopher Dorner as belonging to an admired, well-liked family and a man who usually kept to himself. He was previously married with no children, and court records show his wife filed for divorce in 2007. He was also a United States Navy Reserve officer. He was commissioned in 2002. He commanded a security unit at the Naval Air Station Fallon, which is in Fallon, Nevada. He served with the Mobile Inshore Undersea Warfare Unit from June 2004 to February 2006, and he was deployed to Bahrain with Coastal Riverine Group 2 from November 2006 to April 2007. He was honorably discharged from the Navy Reserve as a lieutenant on February 1st, 2013. In 2002, while a student at undergraduate pilot training at Vance Air Force Base in Enid, Oklahoma, Christopher Dorner and a classmate found a bag containing nearly $8,000, which is equivalent to about $12,100 in 2021, that belonged to the nearby Enid Korean Church of Grace. The two handed the money to the police. When asked their motive, Dorner replied that the military stresses integrity. There was a couple of $1,000, and if people are willing to give that to a church, it must be pretty important to them. Christopher Dorner also stated his mother taught him honesty and integrity, and during his time as a reservist, Dorner received a Navy rifle marksmanship ribbon and a Navy pistol shot ribbon with expert device. All right, it was important that I tell you all of that about Christopher Dorner because of what we're about to discuss now and because about what he did. And I want you to remember everything I just read because that is going to play into how you're going to feel about him and what he did at the end of all of this. So that's why you needed to know that he was in the Navy. That's why you needed to know he graduated college, what he went to college for, because of some of the things that people, including LAPD, started saying about him after this took place. So, during his time as a Naval reservist, he joined the Los Angeles Police Department, better known as LAPD. He entered the police academy in 2005. He graduated in 2006, and shortly afterwards, his duties as a probationary officer were interrupted when he was deployed back to the Navy Reserve to Bahrain. On his return from duty in July 2007, Dorner was paired with a training officer, Teresa Evans, to complete his probationary training. And according to the Los Angeles Times, Evans said that on Dorner's first day working with her, he told her that he planned to sue the LAPD after he completed his probationary period in response to how the LAPD had responded to complaints he had previously made against his classmate. Now, we don't know what those allegations were. And with his training officer, Teresa Evans, hearing that, this is kind of where things where police officers protect the police in the station comes in, because now he's telling her, man, I filed all these complaints against my classmate. No one's doing anything. I don't want to make waves while I'm still in probation. But as soon as this is over, I'm going to sue LAPD because they haven't responded to my complaints. So my thoughts is whatever his complaints were, they were egregious enough for him to want to put his career on the line. He really never got that opportunity because this is what happened. On July 28, 2007, Dorner and Evans responded to the Doubletree Hotel in San Pedro, California, regarding a disturbance being caused by Christopher Gettler, who had schizophrenia with severe dementia. Dorner filed a report alleging that Evans had used excessive force in her treatment of Gettler, accusing her of twice kicking Gettler in the chest and once in the face while he was handcuffed and lying on the ground. Gettler's father testified that his son told him he had been kicked by a police officer. Dorner filed the report the day after being told that Evans had given an evaluation saying that he needed to improve his performance. The LAPD investigated the complaint, examining the allegation against Evans and the truthfulness of Dorner's report through an internal review board of 3 members, 2 LAPD captains, and a criminal defense attorney. During the 7-month investigation of Dorner's complaint, Evans was assigned to desk duty and was not allowed to earn money outside of her LAPD job. Dorner's attorney at the board hearing was former LAPD captain Randall Kwan. Now, why they point out that she was not able to take work outside of her LAPD job is because, as you guys may know, sometimes cops moonlight as security or bouncers or armed guards or whatever it is for other companies when they are not working as a police officer at that particular time. So when they get off work, they go to another job where they're armed security. She was unable to do that now because of this complaint. It's also important for you guys to keep in mind that this complaint with Dorner was filed the day after being told that Evans had given an evaluation saying he needed to improve his performance. That comes into great play because now they start questioning, did he do this just because he was told that his performance was not up to par? I want you to also remember, again, I'm going to keep pushing this home, Teresa Evans was already told by him that he was going to sue the LAPD when his probationary period is over, Right after that, he gets this evaluation that says he needs to improve his performance right at the time he files this report. So the LAPD investigated the complaint, examined the allegations against Evans and the truthfulness of Dorner's report. So the review board heard testimony from a number of witnesses. And I want you guys to really pay attention to this one. 2 hotel employees testified that they did not see Evans kick Gettler. Additionally, a Port police officer testified that he did not see Evans kick Gettler. However, some aspects of his statement contradict photographs from the scene. Gettler was brought to the police station and given medical treatment for injuries to his face, but did not mention being kicked at that time. According to Gettler's father, later that day, Gettler told his father that he had been kicked by an officer, and his father testified to that at Dorner's disciplinary hearing. In a videotaped interview with Dorner's attorney shown at the hearing, Gettler stated that he was kicked in the face by a female police officer on the day and in the place in question. However, when Gettler testified at the hearing, his responses to questioning were described as generally incoherent and non-responsive. The investigation concluded that there was no kicking and later decided that Dorner had lied. Let's examine that. If you're listening to what I just said, you just heard that. So 2 employees said they didn't see it. A port officer says that he didn't see anybody getting kicked, but his statement contradicted the photographs that was taken on the scene. Gettler was taken for medical treatment for bruises to his face, which is where Dorner said that he was kicked in the face, in the chest. They took him to the police station to get that medical treatment done for him. At that time, Gettler wouldn't mention that he was kicked, but then, according to his father, he certainly did say that he was kicked. A videotaped interview was done with him by Dorner's attorney. They showed it at the hearing where Gettler said, yeah, man, I was kicked. She kicked me all up in my face. She kicked me all up in my chest. You can't lie on videotape. That should have been proof and evidence enough. That's exactly what took place. But just because Gettler got on the stand, they swear he was incoherent and he was non-responsive. Because if I remember correctly, I think Gettler not only had the mental issues, but he also had a drug issue. The investigation concluded no kicking happened and that Dorner had lied. So they're saying, we don't believe you. Even though we got this videotape, Christopher Dorner, we don't believe you. She didn't kick anybody. You're just mad because of the fact that you don't like the fact that you got a bad evaluation on your performance. Therefore, you're choosing to lie on this cop. So what happens to Chris after that? In 2008, he was fired by the LAPD for making false statements in his report and in his testimony against Evans. They fired him for lying and creating false reports. Where's the falseness at? You got the dude there. You treated him. He's told his father. His father has now said twice on 2 different occasions, my son said he was kicked. You got him on videotape. But nope. Christopher Dorner is just a big problem. He's mad. He lied. He's got to go. His attorney, Quan, stated that Dorner was treated unfairly and was being made a scapegoat. Dorner appealed his termination by filing a writ of mandamus with the Los Angeles County Superior Court. Judge David Yafe wrote that he was uncertain whether the training officer kicked the suspect or not, but nevertheless upheld the department's decision to fire Dorner, according to the Los Angeles Times. The judge says, I'm uncertain. I don't know if he was kicked or not. Regardless of all things I've seen, I just don't know. But even though I don't know, Christopher Dorner, I'm going to go ahead and upheld this decision. You're fired. Get your stuff. Thank you. Good luck in future endeavors. See you later. Yaff ruled that he would presume that the LAPD's accusations that Dorner's report was false would stand, even though he did not know if his report of Evans kicking Gettler was false. This enraged Christopher Dorner, who yelled out in disbelief at the end of the hearing, I told the truth. How can this ruling happen? Dorner appealed to the California Court of Appeal, which affirmed the lower court's ruling on October 3rd, 2011. Under California law, administrative findings in this case by the LAPD are entitled to a presumption of correctness, and the petitioner, which in this case was Dorner, bears the burden of proving that they were incorrect. The appeals court concluded that the LAPD has substantial evidence for its finding that Dorner was not credible in his allegations against Evans. Folks, it is important for you to know this right now. Again, I'm going to make this statement because we're about to get into what he did. I do not agree with what he did, but if you're listening within the sound of my voice, you can agree with me about this. Christopher Dorner did everything that he legally could and that he humanly could to right this wrong. He took it to as many courts as he had to. He tried to appeal it. He tried to get it overturned. He was trying to get somebody to listen to him just to say, yes, this happened, and somebody believed him. The blue line. That's what this is all about. The blue line. If you don't understand what the blue line of justice is, or the blue line for the police, whatever you want to call it, it is that cops don't rat out other cops. If you see a cop going out there and beating somebody up and you standing right there, the blue line says you're supposed to say you didn't see it. You're never supposed to rat out another officer. Christopher Dorner was fired because he crossed the blue line. He did not want to see the injustice that Teresa Evans was doing, so he went and he said, let me do what I should do. As a cop, you take an oath to protect and to serve. Even the worst perpetrator has that right up underneath the oath that you take. And he wanted to make sure that she doesn't do this again, which means that Teresa Evans has probably done this same thing many a time before, but she was with a partner that respected that blue line and that wouldn't cross it. So again, keep in mind, he did everything that he could. And then this took place. In early February 2013, coincident with the state of a series of revenge shootings, Dorner was perpetrated to have posted a detailed note on his Facebook page discussing his history, motivations, and plans. The 11,000-word post became known as his manifesto. Dorner listed 40 law enforcement personnel whom he was prepared to kill and stated, I know most of you who personally know me are in disbelief to hear from media reports that I'm suspected of committing such horrendous murders and have taken drastic and shocking actions in the last couple of days. The posting began. Unfortunately, this is a necessary evil that I do not enjoy but must partake and complete for substantial change to occur within the LAPD and reclaim my name. The department has not changed since the Rampart and Rodney King days. It has gotten worse. Dorner issued a single demand, a public admission by the LAPD that his termination was in retaliation for reporting excessive force. He also asked journalists to pursue the truth, pointing out specific lines of investigation for reporters to follow under the Freedom of Information Act. Here at True Crime and Authors, I read a lot of books. Every author that you've heard me interview and everyone that you will hear me interview, I've either read one of their books or I'm in the process of reading one. So how do I keep up with all of the books that I read? Well, that is where the show's sponsor, Catch Creations 614, comes into play. Catch Creations makes digital handmade planners and journals, and for those who want something on paper, printables as well. She can make anything from My Little Pony to Black Panther, anything that you can creatively think of, Catch Creations 614 can get it done. With excellent customer service and excellent communication, the owner, Kristen, will make sure that your journal comes out right and perfect the first time. And for those who are listeners of this show, you will get a special 10% discount when you use the code TrueCrime10. Catch Creations, best handmade planners, journals, and printables in the business. Check it out now. I have that manifesto for you guys. I want to read some of it for you. Of course, I'm not going to read it all. As you just heard, that manifesto is 11,000 words. What they leave out on Wikipedia is what they called it and how it came, and they gave you a little bit of it. But if you bear with me, I want to read you a little bit of his manifesto. I will post a link to where you can read the entire thing if you would like to. I have read his entire manifesto before when I shot this case originally, and see what you guys think. So it starts out from Christopher Jordan Dorner, 7648, which I believe was his badge number, to America. The subject was last resort regarding CF number 07004281, which I believe was the case number. He says, I know most of you who personally know me are in disbelief to hear from media reports that I'm suspected of committing such horrendous murders and have taken drastic and shocking actions in the last couple of days. You are saying to yourself that this is completely out of character of the man you knew who always wore a smile wherever he was seen. I know I will be vilified by the LAPD and the media. Unfortunately, this is a necessary evil that I do not enjoy, but must partake and complete for substantial change to occur within the LAPD and reclaim my name. The department has not changed since the Rampart and Rodney King days. It has gotten worse. The consent decree should never have been lifted. The only thing that has evolved from the consent decree is those officers involved in the Rampart scandal and Rodney King incidents have since promoted to supervisor, commanders, and command staff in executive positions. The question is, what would you do to clear your name? Name. A word or set of words by which a person, animal, place, or thing is known, addressed, or referred to. Name synonyms, reputation, title, appellation, denomination, repute. A name is more than just a noun, verb, or adjective. It's your life, your legacy, your journey, sacrifices, and everything you've worked hard for every day of your life as an adolescent, young adult, and adult. Don't let anybody tarnish it when you know you've lived up to your own set of ethics and personal ethos. In 807, I reported on Officer Teresa Evans, now a sergeant, for kicking a suspect during a use of force while I was assigned as a patrol officer at LAPD's Harbor Division. While covering the suspect, Christopher Gettler, Evans kicked the suspect twice in the chest and once in the face. The kick to the face left a visible injury on the left cheek below the eye. Unfortunately, after reporting it to supervisors and investigated by PSB, Internal Affairs Investigator Detective Villanueva Gallegos, nothing was done. I have broken their supposed blue line. Unfortunately, it's not just us, it's justice. In fact, 10 months later on 6/25/08, after already successfully completing probation, acquiring a basic post certificate and intermediate post certificate, I was relieved of duty by the LAPD while assigned to patrol at Southwest Division. It is clear as day that the department retaliated toward me for reporting Evans for kicking Mr. Christopher Gettler. The department stated that I had lied and made up the report that Evans had kicked the suspect. I later went to a Board of Rights department hearing for decision of continued employment from 10:08 to 1:09. During this BOR hearing, a video was played for the BOR panel where Christopher Gettler stated that he was indeed kicked by Officer Evans, and the video was sent to multiple news agencies. In addition to Christopher Gettler stating he was kicked, his father, Richard Gettler, also stated that his son had stated he was kicked by an officer when he was arrested after being released from custody. This was all presented for the department at the BOR hearing. They still found me guilty and terminated me. What they didn't mention was that the BOR panel made up of Captain Phil Tengenrides, Captain Justin Eisenberg, and City Attorney Martella had a significant problem from the time the board was assembled. Captain Phil Tengenrides was a personal friend of Teresa Evans from when he was her supervisor at Harbor Station. That is a clear conflict of interest and made my argument for his removal early and was denied. The advocate for the LAPD BOR was Sergeant Anderson. Anderson also had a conflict of interest as she was Evans's friend and former partner from Harbor Division, where they both worked patrol together. I made my argument for her removal when I discovered her relation to Evans, and it was denied. During the BOR, the department attempted to label me unsuccessfully as a bully. They stated that I had bullied a recruit, Abraham Sheffries, in the academy, when in reality, an unfounded disposition from the official 1.28 formal complaint investigation found that I was the one who stood up for Abraham Sheffries when other recruits sang Nazi Hitler youth songs about burning Jewish ghettos in World War II Germany, where his father was a survivor of concentration camp. How dare you attempt to label me with such a nasty, vile word? I ask that all earnest journalists investigating this story ask Officer Abraham Sheffries about the incident when Officer Bordios began singing a Nazi youth song about burning Jewish ghettos. Now, I'll stop there. That gives you a little bit of his manifesto. I will post the whole unredacted manifesto in the show notes. But now you see where he's getting at. He goes on to lay out everything that he felt was wrong in LAPD. He even starts listing things that was taking place besides the World War II comments that dealt with racism. He listed cities and states. He listed specific officers that had did all these things. He laid everything that he knew on that table that day, trying to get somebody one last time to probably look at it again and help him. But did help come? So what happened after that? So after they discovered his manifesto on February 9, 2013, in response to it and the start of the killing spree, LAPD Chief Charlie Beck informed Dorner through the media that there would be a review of the disciplinary case that led to Dorner's dismissal. Beck said officials would re-examine the allegations by Dorner that his law enforcement career was undone by racist colleagues. This is what makes me upset. Because what you would think is that on February 9, 2013, after they heard in response to his manifesto and after Christopher Dorner started shooting. So they want you to believe that he just wrote the manifesto, got up, grabbed his guns, started shooting. Folks, that is not what happened. LAPD Chief Charlie Beck knows that's not what happened. And he should be ashamed of himself, because I'm going to tell you what happened. When you read his manifesto, it comes up that basically he gave them a time frame. He said that he wanted LAPD to go and publicly on the news make a statement and apologize, saying that he did not lie about the incident that took place with Teresa Evans, that it was true that Teresa Evans really did kick Christopher Gettler in the face, that he never lied. He wanted his name cleared. Now, it's been a while since I read it. I can't remember what the time frame was, but I want to say it was somewhere around that 24-hour period. They had enough time to do that. He said, if I don't get this, I'm going to start taking people out. But the people that I'm taking out is law enforcement and families. Now, if you don't know why he would go after families, somewhere in that manifesto too, if you read it, he goes on to say that he does not have and will never have a family, so he's going to terminate theirs. And that's where the family comes in. He started going into that old mob mentality, which as we get a little bit further, explain that. Again, I'm not saying what he did was right, but he wanted journalists to tell their story accurately, and I'm giving it to you because you're going to find that LAPD made some serious mistakes that cost a lot of money. But that's not what he did. He gave them 24 hours to come forward. At this point in time, if they would have even did their job and lured him in, right, and been like, hey, Christopher, we know, man, we're going to go ahead and do this. Even if you set up a fake news conference or whatever you got to do, I would have got him in there, probably go ahead and cuffed him, put him in jail, because the things he outlines in his manifesto could be taken as terroristic threats. He's named 40 law enforcement personnel, including his attorney, Quan, that he's going to take out. Now, you may be saying, why Quan? Because Quan actually helped him. No, he felt like Quan didn't do enough for him. He didn't do enough to help him. LAPD did no movement. I feel like LAPD, well, is culpable of getting these people killed. So Dorner's killing spree began with a package stating his complaints. He sent it to Anderson Cooper, and it arrived at CNN on February 1st, 2013. After the first killings, Dorner's threats in his manifesto caused law enforcement to mount a widespread manhunt that spread from California to Nevada and Mexico. Protection details were set up for over 40 potential targets of Dorner, and thousands of police were assigned to patrol Southern California's highways. The LAPD also took patrol officers off motorcycles for their protection, but they did not do it quick enough. You have this manifesto. He's told you he's taken out 40 law enforcement. They didn't move. They didn't take it seriously. They didn't take it seriously until it was too late, and that's after he fired the first bullet. In that package that he sent to Anderson Cooper, it contained a DVD that stated Dorner's case against the LAPD. It also contained a bullet-riddled challenge coin issued by LAPD Chief William Bratton and a note inscribed with 1 MOA, which meant 1 minute of angle, implying that the coin was shot at 100 yards, 91 meters, at a grouping of 1 inch, which is 2.5 centimeters, boasting of his accuracy with a rifle. So what he's pretty much telling you is, anybody I'm aiming at, they gonna die if I want them to. I'm a sharpshooter. William Bratton's already given me the coin that says I can do that. And he shot that challenge coin at exactly the 100 yards, 1 inch groupings. That's marksman accuracy. So he's already letting you know I'm serious about this. If this begins, I have the skill to take people out. LAPD still didn't move. On February 3rd, during the evening hours in Irvine, California, 28-year-old Monica Quan and her fiancé, 27-year-old Keith Lawrence, were shot dead in Lawrence's parked white Kia Optima outside their condominium complex. Quan, a women's basketball assistant coach at Cal State Fullerton, was the daughter of Randall Quan, a former LAPD captain, and the lawyer who represented Dorner during his 2008 dismissal hearing. Lawrence was a campus public safety officer for the University of Southern California. This was tragic. I believe she's the only person that was a relative that was killed. I was asked a question by my daughter, why did he do it? He already told you in the manifesto he would never have a family, so he's going to terminate yours. Here's the main reason I believe that he did it. If you listen to the first time I did this, I asked her, could you just walk into the White House right now and go say you're going to see the president without getting pat down and searched and everything else? It was the same. In Christopher Dorner's mind, he knew that the 40 targets that he set, a lot of them were high targets, meaning they're going to be guarded. Randall Quan was a former captain. He had captains on that list. He had sergeants on that list. He had lieutenants on that list. You're not going to just be able to walk into the police station and get to the captain and shoot him. So even though I fully disagree, when he saw Monica Quan and Keith Lawrence outside in their Kia, they didn't know what was going on, totally unsuspected. He snuck up behind them, shot both of them. I believe here is the biggest motive. Randall Quan lived. So now he has to wrestle with the fact for the rest of his life that because of actions that was done by the LAPD, because Christopher Dorner didn't feel like that Randall Quan did enough to push the case and to get Evans convicted or removed, that he was a part of this blue line conspiracy. That's why I think he did that one. And what Chris is saying to him is, because of you and your actions in LAPD, your daughter's dead. He has to live with that. I do believe that was the motive behind that one. On February 4th, Christopher Dorner's manifesto was posted online stating his motive for the shootings was to clear his name. He wrote, "I will not be alive to see my name cleared. That's what this is about, my name." February 4th. They had this long before that. Again, LAPD didn't take this seriously. February 5th, according to military sources, Dorner checked into Naval Base Point Loma in San Diego, but skipped checkout procedures when leaving. February 6th, Dorner's manifesto specifically named Randall Quan and his family as targets, so on February 6th, Irvine police named Dorner as the prime suspect in the murders of Monica Quan and Keith Lawrence. The manifesto claimed Quan had failed to represent Dorner's interests in favor of those of the LAPD. Dorner reported specific acts of specific officers pertaining in the retaliation, but their names were redacted by media sources at the request of law enforcement who cited officer safety concerns. Now that he's gone, the manifesto I'm posting here at the bottom of these show notes, there is no names redacted. You will know exactly 100% who all these officers was that he was talking about. Let me stop there and tell you why I say the LAPD didn't do enough. You have this manifesto. Think about it yourself. If you were chief of police, you get a manifesto in the mail. If you took it seriously and you read it, and it says, all these officers on this list, there's 40 of them. I'm going after them. I'm taking them out. Matter of fact, in his manifesto, he even said, I am bringing war to LAPD. There is no way you can say that can't be serious. They did not put anybody in protective custody. They didn't take anybody off the street. Quan then called his wife and said, you, Monica, get the heck out. This man's sent a manifesto. I don't know if it's real or not, but we can't take the chance. Charlie Beck didn't move anybody. He didn't told those cops, don't go to work the next day. They didn't believe it. LAPD failed to protect their own when somebody calls. And I know for a fact, because I got friends who are cops, I know it is told to them that when threats come in, they have to assess them. But if something like this comes in, you have to take it at face value and move. That's almost the same thing right now. If somebody jumped up online and said, in the next 24 hours, I'm going to bomb the White House because I want to kill the now current president. Do you think the White House and Secret Service is going to sit around and say, President Biden, I understand that people says they're coming to kill you, but we just going to sit here and wait it out for the next 24 hours to see if it happens? No, everybody in the world would be mobilizing to move Biden out of the White House right now. Man, Secret Service, what I already call Air Force One, they've been sneaking him out of the White House under some secret tunnels. And before the next thing you know, Biden to be somewhere that we don't know where he is, shooting a press release saying, hey, I ain't in the White House right now because there's some credible threats out there. Somebody's coming to take me out. LAPD didn't do any of that. And that's why these people you were hearing about and about to hear about ended up dead, because LAPD failed to take action when they knew from the manifesto what mindset Christopher Dorner was already in. On February 7th, 2 LAPD officers were driving to a protection detail where they were assigned as security for one of the officers potentially targeted by Dorner when they were flagged down by R.L. McDaniel at about 1 a.m. McDaniel reported seeing a man matching Dorner's description at a gas station in Corona. The officers investigated the report, and they were following a pickup truck when the driver stopped, got out, and fired a rifle at them, grazing the head of one officer. About 20 minutes after the Corona shooting, 2 officers of the neighboring Riverside Police Department were ambushed and shot while stopped in their marked patrol unit at a red traffic light in that city. One officer, Michael Crane, died shortly after the shooting. The other was rushed to a nearby hospital in critical condition for surgery and survived. About an hour and 25 minutes after the Riverside shooting, at approximately 3 a.m., a man matching Dorner's description tried to steal a boat in San Diego, telling the boat's captain that he would take the boat to Mexico. A federal criminal complaint was filed against Dorner this same day for allegedly fleeing California to avoid prosecution. Hours later, the burning remains of Dorner's vehicle, a dark gray 2005 Nissan Titan truck, were found on a remote fire trail by a local Daniel McGowan near Big Bear Lake, about 80 miles from Los Angeles. Investigators spread out to search for Dorner in the surrounding area, and at about 1:25, officers went from door to door. all schools in the Bear Valley Unified School District were placed into a state of lockdown. On February 9th, CNN reported that the Los Angeles Police Department was reopening its investigation into Dorner's dismissal from the LAPD so as to reassure the public that the police were doing everything in their power to capture Dorner. It was already too late. Now you wait till he's killed several people, and now you reopen the investigation, which he asked you to open before this even began, but you're saying you're doing it to ensure or to reassure the public that the police were doing everything in their power to capture Dorner. Yeah, they're doing everything they can to capture him, but you did nothing to assure that this did not happen. It would be different if they came on and said, hey, we did everything he asked us to do in the manifesto. We reopened it. We answered him within that time frame. So he's doing this. Now he's just a vigilante out for vengeance. I would buy that. But they did nothing. February 10th, authorities offered a $1 million reward for information leading to the capture of Dorner. And for the first time, Dorner's actions were described as a form of domestic terrorism. When Dorner believed to be hiding somewhere in the San Bernardino Mountains, an unmanned aerial vehicle was deployed to aid the search from the air amid fears that Dorner would head for the Mexican border. Later in the day, a Lowe's home improvement store in Northridge, Los Angeles, was evacuated based on reports of a possible sighting of Dorner. The Riverside District Attorney filed formal charges against Christopher Dorner for the murder of a police officer and the attempted murder of 3 other officers. On February 12th, police raided a hotel in Tijuana, Mexico, based on a tip that Dorner was there. Authorities also discovered surveillance footage of Dorner purchasing scuba diving gear at a sporting goods store in Torrance, California. A message posted on February 12th to the Twitter account of the San Bernardino County District Attorney's Office said, "The sheriff has asked all members of the press to stop tweeting immediately. It is hindering officer safety. #Dorner." The message was removed within a few hours. So that leads you to now his final standoff. On February 12th, San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department deputies responded to a report of a carjacking of a white Dodge truck at 12:22 p.m. Pacific Standard Time and began looking for the vehicle on the ground and from the air. The truck's driver had not been harmed. Fish and Game officers were the first to spot the vehicle and recognize Dorner as the driver. Officers from numerous agencies chased Dorner to a cabin near Big Bear Lake, California. Dorner opened fire on 2 officers from the San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department, hitting both. The officers were airlifted to Loma Linda University Medical Center, where Detective Jeremiah McKay was pronounced dead. The San Bernardino Sheriff's Department confirmed to the media that Dorner was barricaded in a cabin near the command center set up for the manhunt in a mountainous rural area northeast of Angeles Oaks, California, and that the building was surrounded by law enforcement. The Los Angeles Times reported that there might be hostages in the cabin with Dorner, and a 3-mile perimeter was set up around the cabin, and residents were told to remain inside with their doors locked. Police initially attempted to force Dorner out of the cabin by using tear gas and demanding over loudspeakers that he surrender. When Dorner did not respond, police used a demolition vehicle to knock down most walls of the building. They then shot pyrotechnic tear gas canisters into the cabin, which resulted in the cabin catching fire. Such devices are nicknamed burners, as the heat generated by the pyrotechnic reaction often causes fires. Shortly thereafter, a single gunshot was heard from the cabin, and as the fire continued, ammunition was exploding from within the cabin, making it dangerous for officials to try to put out the fire. Law enforcement experts differ on whether it was justified to use pyrotechnic devices to end a standoff instead of waiting for Dorner to come out. In the evening of February 12th, LAPD and the San Bernardino County Sheriff's Office denied reports that a body believed to be that of Dorner had been recovered from the burned cabin. In a press conference, LAPD Commander Andrew Smith stated that no body had been removed from the site, adding that reports of a body being identified were untrue as the cabin area was too hot to make entry. Now, there's 2 things to know here. One, there's a lot of people still to this day that talk about this case that feel like the LAPD burned Christopher Dorner out on purpose. And 2, that even if he would have came out and surrendered peacefully, they would have took him out. I believe both. Here's why I believe both. The pyrotechnics they use, they call them burners because it's so hot. It makes a spark before the gas comes out. That's what sets off the gas. I live here, right around these areas they're talking about. They're not too far from me. Northridge is probably about a good 30 minutes from where I am. They're in the middle of the California desert. I know you guys seen snow, but where he was at, didn't look like there's a whole lot of snow. But still, even so, it's dry. I live right around all these areas they're talking about. Northridge is about a good 30 minutes from me, if not less. It was wintertime, yes. But we suffer a lot of dryness here in the deserts of California. You already know, even though it's snow on the ground and you've seen the wetness, that there's something there that's going to be able to catch fire. They already knocked all the walls down. So they shot that in there. There's this documentary I'll talk to you about in a minute because it greatly disturbed me. But you'll hear them on the radio saying, yeah, we shot in the canister and we believe it's going to burn down the place. They already knew that it was going to burn up when they shot it in there. Their sights at this point was to take Christopher Dorner out at all costs. Now, I can't say that I would blame them being that he was killing law enforcement officers. I get that. But the one thing I want to point this out is, because the documentary I'm going to tell you about in a minute has him as a monster, a spree killer, and someone who just wants to kill people. Not that anybody should have died, but I just want to point out that other than Quan's daughter, nobody else was injured unless they were LAPD. The people that they're saying here that they believe they had hostages, the story that I'm telling you about that is he had broken into a cabin. This is where he got the second truck. So see how they leave things out. So he had broken into somebody's cabin. There was 2 people inside, a man and a woman, husband and wife. He tied them up. And let me say, not a very good tie job. And the reason I say that is because after he left with their truck, I believe it was a Nissan, they were able to break free of the ropes very easily. And they call 911. And you hear the lady saying, Christopher Dorner was just here. He tied us up. They said, are you hurt or injured? No, we're not hurt. We're not injured. He didn't hurt us. He just took our truck. They asked for the description of the truck. During also this time, he ran into another guy who owned a bunch of the land around where he was at. And he says on his account that as he was driving around, making sure that nobody was stranded out there or what was going on, Christopher Dorner just walked out from between the trees with his gun. And he walked up to the guy and he said, I don't want to hurt you. Just get out. Just walk up the road. That's what the guy did. And he's still alive. More about that here in a minute, but I just want you to see how LAPD decides to brand him. So on February 13th, it was reported that human remains had been found in the search of Dorner's body in the cabin. A wallet with a California driver's license with the name Christopher Dorner was also found in the rubble of the cabin. That same day, San Bernardino County Sheriff John McClam disputed rumors that deputies had intentionally burned down the cabin. It was also revealed that deputies had knocked on the door of the cabin earlier during the search for Dorner, but moved on when they received no answer. On February 14th, medical examiners confirmed during an autopsy using dental records that the charred body found in the burned out cabin was in fact that of Dorner. On February 15th, the sheriff's office announced the autopsy showed Dorner died from a single gunshot wound to the head, with evidence indicating that it was self-inflicted. At the same news conference, Sheriff John McClam reiterated the claim that deputies had not deliberately set the cabin on fire. In the sheriff's department's Captain Greg Herbert, who led the assault on the cabin, claimed that the canisters were a last resort, saying this was our only option, and adding that the potential for fire was considered. I believe they burned him out. I believe they knew exactly what was going to happen, and that's what they did. Let's talk a little bit about this documentary that I just made mention to that I have found, and I had never seen it before, but I found it the other day. And it's on YouTube. I'll leave a link, and it's titled, What Made Christopher Dorner Shoot Several Cops? Now, let me just give you guys this tidbit. This is why I don't probably do interview LAPDs. This is why I don't take money for my opinions. This is why I do everything independent, because I don't have to tell you guys anything that's not true. If you watch this documentary, it's all skewed towards LAPD. Charlie Beck's up on there talking about it. Some of the captains that's still alive is up on there talking about it. They're making Christopher Dorner seem like he's always talking about racism, like he's a victim of racism all the time, that he was a bad cop, that he was just vengeful. And after he was fired from LAPD, he decided that he wanted to go out and just start killing people. And they have no reason why they did all this. This is what it said in this documentary. So if you never heard of this case before and you come against this documentary, you can be like, man, this dude just started shooting people because he was fired because he couldn't handle the fact that he wasn't doing his job. No. Let me give you just a couple of comments off of that video. What this one really caught me, from a guy named Mark Martin. He said he did the right thing by reporting police brutality by a fellow officer. The department fired him for crossing the blue line, gang. He snapped with psychotic anger and rage. He said he was going to target everything law enforcement and related. I agree with everything he did until he started shooting people. This is a wrong depiction of Dorner. The police department shafted him for telling on dirty cops. Then he flipped out and went tactical on the law enforcement community. I find it interesting how stories like this get spun and twisted to keep people from what started it all of it. Police abuse and lies. Christopher Dorner did not set out to just kill people. I don't take up for murderers at all, but I'm telling you, that's not what happened here. He went on a rampage because his name was tarnished, because the LAPD didn't care, because he spent time seeing that there's cops doing things they shouldn't do. He already told you at the beginning, he told his training officer he planned on suing LAPD for another claim in which he already made, and nobody's moving. In his manifesto, he lists point by point of everything he went through not to get to this point. So if you watch that documentary, nothing that they're saying is true about Christopher Dorner. He is not a spree killer. I've covered spree killers. Let me tell you what a spree killer does. They're just killing people. So the people that Christopher Dorner came across in that cabin, the guy he let go in the truck, other people he ran across in various parking lots and gas stations, if he was a spree killer, he just would have killed them on the way. But that's not what he did. Now, LAPD will tell you everything that Christopher Dorner did wrong, and they'll tell you everything that was wrong with the case, but they won't tell you what they did wrong. That cost us, the California taxpayers, millions of dollars and caused innocent people to get hurt. In closing, let's talk about that. So there were several truck misidentifications. In two separate incidents in the early morning hours of February 7, 2013, police fired on people who turned out to be unrelated to Dorner. Dorner was not present at either of the incidents I'm about to tell you about. At about 5:30 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, at least 7 LAPD officers on a protection detail of an unarmed LAPD official's residence in the 19,500 block of Red Beam Street in the Los Angeles County city of Torrance opened fire on the back of a light blue Toyota Tacoma and shot its two occupants, Emma Hernandez, who was 71, and her daughter, Margie Carranza, who was 47, who was delivering newspapers for the Los Angeles Times. The vehicle, according to officers, was spotted exiting a freeway and heading to the area of the residence that officers were protecting, was stopped by police to match the description of Dorner's 2005 gray Nissan Titan, and was moving without his headlights on. And I believe at this time, the gray Nissan Titan was already burned up. Hernandez was shot in the back and Carranza received wounds to her hand. Their attorney claimed police had no idea who was in that vehicle when they opened fire, and that nothing about his clients or their vehicle matched the descriptions given of the suspect or his truck. The two women stated they were given no warning prior to being fired upon. Nobody said that they were LAPD. Nobody said put up your hands. Nobody said open the door. They just opened fire. A neighbor said the truck was used every day to deliver newspapers, and the women who used it kept their headlights off so as not to wake people up. The two women were injured, but both survived. The LAPD started an internal investigation into the shooting committed by multiple officers, and according to their attorney, Glenn Jonas, 102 bullet holes were found in the truck. The LAPD declined to confirm the total number of officers involved or how many bullets were fired or if any verbal warnings were given to the women before the shooting began. Now, you tell me that they were going to take Christopher Dorner alive, he came out peacefully, and they just shot up this truck with 102 bullets, did not even make mention they were LAPD. They just shot up the truck. Approximately 25 minutes after that incident, officers from the Torrance Police Department struck and opened fire on yet another vehicle. Like the first shooting, the incident involved a vehicle that police claimed resembled the description of Dorner's truck, but was later discovered to be a black Honda Ridgeline driven by a white male. The victim of the second shooting by police was David Perdue, who was on his way to the beach for some early morning surfing before work. A Torrance Police Department police cruiser slammed into Perdue's pickup, and Torrance police officers opened fire. Perdue was not hit by any of the bullets, but reportedly suffered injuries as a result of the car impact. Police claimed that Perdue's pickup truck matched the description of the one belonging to Dorner. However, the Los Angeles Times reported that the vehicle involved was once again a different make and color to that of the suspects, and that Perdue looks nothing like the suspect. David Perdue was a white guy. Christopher Dorner was a big burly black dude. I don't know how you get that wrong. So it costs California a ton of money. In April 2013, the Los Angeles Police Department paid a $4.2 million settlement to Margie Carranza and Emma Hernandez, the two women who were mistakenly shot by police on the morning of February 7, 2013. The city of Torrance initially offered a $500,000 settlement to David Perdue for ramming his pickup truck and then shooting at him on the morning of February 7, 2013. This was rejected, and with the case set to go to trial in August of 2014, they reached an agreement in July 2014 for $1.8 million settlement paid by the city of Torrance to Perdue. And then on February 4th, 2014, LAPD Chief Charlie Beck announced that 8 officers have violated the LAPD's use of force policy and would be disciplined. Beck noted that California state law prevents him from disclosing the nature of the discipline publicly, but that discipline could range from extensive retraining up to termination. Disciplinary actions for the officers involved did not include criminal charges. And then lastly, on February 10, 2013, Mayor Antonio Villaraigosa announced a $1 million reward for information leading to the capture of Dorner. And because the terms of the offer were not carefully stipulated, judges had to later decide how the reward would be divided. Ultimately, the reward was divided 4 ways, with $800,000 going to James and Karen Reynolds, who were tied up by Dorner in their Big Bear cabin before he stole their vehicle, $150,000 to Daniel McGowan, and $50,000 to R.L. McDaniel. If you're confused by that, it's because since they all called in tips, he was at my house, he stole my truck, I met him on the side of the road, whatever, it led to him being killed. So now they had to pay out the $1 million that Antonio Villaraigosa said that they would, and that's how they did it. There you have the case, folks. In closing, you can draw your own conclusions. I do not believe they would have took him peacefully. I think the accidental shootings of the people that we just talked about is proof of that. They were going out to kill him at all costs. Again, I certainly understand that. You don't know what you're going to run up against when you got a man that's already killed several law enforcement officers and he's running around with all kinds of assault rifles. I totally understand that. But you guys have to examine this for yourself. And you guys have to do the one thing that Dr. Phil calls the but if for test. And you have to examine that but if for they would have listened to his manifesto. If somebody would have given him the apology and the correctness to his name that he wanted, would he have still done this? Now, when I did this initially, my daughter said she thinks he still would. I'm different. I don't think that he would. I think he knew he probably would have to go to jail for terroristic threat, but that's not what it was about. None of this was really about killing anybody. It wasn't really about getting vengeance, as they put it. It was about clearing his name. He did not want to go down as somebody who was a liar. I don't know how you guys feel about your name, but I feel the same way about mine. My name is all that I have. You guys don't know me from a can of paint. This podcast, you know what my name is. And if I did something that was not right, or you guys went out and spread rumors against my name, I'm going to be heated, because now that goes against who I am as a person. I would do whatever it took to clear my name. Now, I might not go to this extreme of killing people and all of that, but I would do whatever it took to clear my name. These kind of things has happened to me in the past. Some people's accused me of doing things I've never done, and the things that they were accused me of, it could damage in my business that I was running at the time. Nobody wanted to be associated with somebody that they were accusing of doing the things that they were saying I was doing. They were saying that I was a very abusive person and I was beating people up. None of that was true. And I had to write a letter and say, if you guys don't stop, we gonna be seeing you in court. And it all stopped. It dried up. When I explained to them what defamation of character meant, that how much money that they could be liable for if I was to sue, because now you're messing with my business and people don't want to deal with people that you're saying things that I did that I never did. Oh, that dried up real quick. So I know what it's like for somebody that wants to clear their name and not have it tarnished. Again, folks, I do not agree by the methods of which Christopher Dorner went about it. I wish he could have done it differently. I wish that Monica Kwan would have never got involved in this. She is the most innocent person out of all of this, her and her fiance. But like I said, when you have people that feel like that they have ran the course of everything in which they can do, and you heard it for yourself throughout this case, he took it to court after court after court. You heard in his manifesto, he was getting nowhere because he's finding out that the judge over this is friends with this person and this person is friends with that person. They're scratching, rubbing each other's back. The blue line was in full effect. He was now the enemy. The job was, you violate the blue line, we're going to get you out. And it turned into this. You never know what people are capable of. And if you have anything to do with that, you yourself have to take some responsibility. Charlie Beck, who I believe is still around, all these attorneys and officers and this board that was sitting on there to investigate him, they got to live with this now. They also got to live with the fact that they did not do whatever it took to make sure that they protected the 40 people named in LAPD as a whole from getting killed by Christopher Dorner, because they didn't take him seriously. Instead, they go on a documentary and they would have you to believe that he just decided that he wanted to go on this massive spree killing. He was a failure is what they said. He didn't get to where he wanted to get to in life. He was a failure. Did you guys hear what I read about what he did before all this happened? I don't think he was failing. And I'll say it up front, the person that's running the YouTube page who did the documentary, which is called Real Crime, they should be ashamed of themselves too, because they're really aiding to it just by the way the guy's describing it. But you can totally tell that this was totally done from the LAPD side, and they wanted to portray him as this evil, villainous person who just wanted to kill people. But the one thing that you will find out if you listen to that is they never told you what I just told you at the end about the $5 million settlements that they caused because they were shooting people and they didn't know who was in the vehicles. So I will say, may all the innocent people rest in peace. I wish Christopher Dorner could have done this in a different way. Again, I do not condone what it is that he did, but I do see what pushed him to that situation. All right, guys, that is this case. I hope that you do decide to read the manifesto, go through whatever documents you want to, and make your own decisions about what you think really took place. All right, next week is a special treat for you guys. It is author interview time, but we're going to do a double author drop. Your first one coming up you're going to get is, would you put your own life in jeopardy for somebody you don't know just so that you can find out who committed the murder that took them out? Oh, you don't want to miss this. We're going to talk to LaDonna Humphrey, who has done exactly just that with the murder of Melissa Witt. Then we're going to talk to a brand new author whose husband pushed her to write this book for a long period of time. She finally decided to do it, and now it's becoming a blockbuster among her fans, readers, and other people. We're going to talk to the incredible Sarah J. Rader. You do not want to miss these two author interviews coming to you next week. All right, guys, I hope you're being safe out there, and always remember these things. Always stay humble. A little love and compassion can go a long way. And this is the podcast where two passions become one. I'll catch you guys the next time.
Thank you for listening to True Crime and Authors. Don't forget to rate, comment, and subscribe. Join us on social media. On Facebook at True Crime and Authors. On Twitter at Authors True. On YouTube and TikTok at True Crime and Authors. And email at truecrimeandauthors@gmail.com. Cover art and logo designed by Dazzling_Ray from Fiverr. Sound mixing and editing by David McClam. Intro script by Sophie Wild from Fiverr. And I'm the voice guy, your imaging guy from Fiverr. See you next time on True Crime and Authors.